Alright, I thought I would reference one of my previous videos, and it's my fourth oldest video, called Battle Scars, Fighting Sin, and Purpose for this channel, and so on. And you'll notice I was kind of smiling while talking about this stuff. And I was thinking about it in regards to hi-fi stories or HFY stories, which basically means humanity fuck yeah. And the constant narrative that humanity is the apex predator on what is normally a death world by most civilizational standards. And you know, it's like, okay, it's kind of true. It's a little wanky, but it's true. At the peak of human achievement is the normalization of existence of humans on basically every single continent except Antarctica. It's not speciation. Other animals have to be different species to adapt to their particular climates. Humans can be racially different to adapt to their respective climates and environments and fellow animals and creatures and plants in the region. You know, some have lactose intolerance, some can handle milk and cheese, and so on, without diarrhea. But basically everyone can handle milk without dying. I'm pretty sure. I don't think anyone's particularly allergic to milk, particularly. I might be wrong. But it is what it is. You know, and it's also true that we can survive in temperature ranges from 40% from freezing to boiling 40% of the way, and we can go equally distant below freezing and survive that as well. Which is like, if you started at 0 and went all the way up, that would be 80% of boiling. So our range is very high relative to most creatures on planet Earth. Now granted, we might need some technology to do some of that stuff, but we can make technology. We can do it. It's within our capability, our mental forethought and mental adaptation and so on. So I was feeling kind of like I was mentally jerking myself off a little bit by listening to one or two hi-fi stories, HFY stories. But at the same time, I was thinking about like my own video about, like I said, Battle Scars, Fighting Sin, and my purpose for this channel, and so on. And I was thinking about it, and I was kind of like, I'm basically an embodiment of that exact thing. You know, I mean, it was pretty hairy. I was kind of hopeless and despairing for a long time. But I survived it. I survived it. Like, holy crap, I survived a lot of physical woundings. Like, serious wounds. And, like, I'll read a Twitter post that just details how far this goes, basically. It's just loading up Twitter right now, actually. Trust me, it'll be worth listening to. I think in a second, as long as I can actually load it up properly. Huh? Oh, there we go. Okay. Well, we just found my posts. As soon as it loads up fully, and then I'll read it off. It's only a short post because it's like a tweet, but it's the truth, and that's something that's amazing. Holy crap! I got 4.1k impressions in my posts in the last 7 days. That's not expected. Okay, so I posted on Twitter my video that I mentioned already twice. And I said, I've actually got the scars from depression and hopelessness, homelessness, and addiction and survived. Got into a better situation. I don't care if I'm fat, I've proven I'm a goddamn tank. I've been on the front lines of the war against death and despair. And I've literally smelled 5 to 6 day-old corpses. And like there's been like 3 to 4 murders 2 blocks away over the last 2 years. And like I faced my own death so many times. Admittedly, I was depressed, so it's not like the most like mentally tough bragging rights possible. But I'm also kind of going under this impression that God was going to keep me homeless because He was like uniquely singling me out as being the Antichrist and stuff. So I was like, well, I guess that's that. Yeah. So that's the level of strain I was under. So maybe a little bit of resilience, but not against God. Let's put it that way. God can break anyone. Okay, so where did I put it? Oh yeah, okay, here he goes. You know what's funny? But when I think about how I've chased bears, been shot, been stabbed multiple times, including pierced through the lung for 24 hours before I finally went to the hospital because the pain was annoying, and I figured I wasn't actually going to die, which was the point to stab myself in the chest at that point. Taking, and I don't suggest you do this even once. I mean, the stabbings as well, but like this one as well is like, don't do this one. I know that. Well, I'll just go on a little side note here, where if you're taking loads of Tylenol to prove Trump wrong that it doesn't cause autism, you're going to fucking kill yourself. Don't do it. It's freakish what I'm about to say. It's literally freakish what I'm about to say. I did it, but I don't suggest doing it again. I don't intend to do it again, even if I were to be in the mood to self-end and so on, to game over. I wouldn't do it this way again. I wouldn't even try it this way. Okay, so here goes. Taken about 40 Tylenols in an hour 7 times within 2 months and survived it all. And a car to the head, and a minor attempt at self-castration, and a self-drowning attempt, although that was at my own will, so I didn't exactly have the strong enough willpower to drown myself. Luckily, I guess, in the end. I might have saved 3 lives of people or something in the meantime, thanks to the insider knowledge of what it's like to be depressed and feel guilty about things and so on. So I guess there's a bit of a redemption to my suffering and my despair and getting over it barely for a while and so on. Yeah. Now, HFY stories can be very inspirational, and they can be kind of true about the peak of humanity. But the actual individual capacity to represent and embody them isn't equally allotted. I think every man should learn what it's like to get punched in the face and try to punch the other guy back. I think that's just naturally important for every single man, basically. except like Ricky Berwick, who's like his legs are like this thick. Literally, he's got a special condition where you could like snap his arm with like your pinky finger and a thumb of a normal person. He's got a special condition. You can look him up. He's got a great sense of humor and so on. He's very mentally resilient, unlike myself, I suppose. But someone like him has an exception to being punched in the face and trying to punch the guy back. Okay, but everyone else needs to have that for being a man. Just to have that experience of combat. And, oh my god, they're hostile, I can't rely on someone else, I have to step up. And then knowing that even if you failed to win, you did step up and you acquitted yourself in some fashion that is actually admirable on some level. Now, I'm not suggesting you go and pick fights with everyone you possibly can all the time to prove how tough you are. But I mean, if someone's being a bully to you and you've got a decent moral stance, as a generally basic moral decency level and so on, and they're very aggressive and hostile in a way that is untowards for, let's say, a suburban or rural level of general abrasiveness, a general abrasiveness from those areas of life, not abrasive compared to what they normally do, which is like when you really want to punch back. But not abrasive according to urban, uptown, but downtown or middle town abrasive. Then step up if that's the case, right? Now, if you're worried about getting stabbed, I suppose that's a real possibility and so on. So make it count, and try to win. But the reason why you do it in high school and stuff like that is because it's a lot less likely you get stabbed, and then you get that experience in a less dangerous environment. When people's muscles are less developed, and your bones are basically just as hard, so the force per punch is less likely to fracture your skull. Because the muscles are weaker, but the bone is just as strong. There's a reason why animals play fight. And it's to learn hunting and combat. Basically. So they can live on their own. And they do live on their own earlier than humans. And play is essentially a very loose amount of training for wars and hunting and finding and keeping a mate. When you play house with a girl, you're negotiating your positions in adulthood when you're like 8 years old with an 8-year-old girl playing house. It's to give you a certain degree of training for adult tasks that you will specialize into more so when you get older. That's what playing is for. In kids. Now, in adults, playing continues to be along that path in some sense, but it's about demonstrating that you have the capacity in something to excel at it because you can grasp its contours mentally. It's like a form of the peacock feathers to have a hobby and so on. Granted, not all hobbies are identical in their capacity to be a peacock feathers mechanism. If you're Dakimakuras and anime waifu figurines and so on, or your Lego or your Harry Potter or something like that, you might have some difficulty. Warhammer 40k might give some difficulty and so on. But a good woman, will almost certainly respect that the man has a hobby that they can excel in, to show that they're good at something, that they have an interest, a joie de vivre, a drive, motivation, goal attainment, and potential, that can be retuned towards being a good provider and so on. And at the same time, if you share the hobby with children, then you can teach them a little bit about their own mental sharpness and particular skills and traits, sharpening practices. And the hobby can become an educational tool for the children, and so on. Now, I'm not saying you should make a hobby for the educational purposes, particularly, but on some level, that's what it is. It's a form of refinement of capacity to do real things, or like real life things, provider things, based alpha Chad kind of things. Like Henry Cavill loves Warhammer 40k, right? My dad loves baseball and woodworking and mechanics for like cars and stuff like that. He's been an architect. He learned like at least I think 8 programming languages, and he translates the old code into new code while keeping the information records intact. And if you know programming, that's kind of you probably have to really know both languages to do that. So he's probably learned about 8 languages overall, computer program languages, to do this stuff over the last 30 years or so. So he can do all that, but he likes baseball and woodworking. And woodworking can be useful, and it has been useful for his particular familial goals, but it's not always about that. And baseball's not about that, and golf's not about that, but those are his things. Tabletop wargaming started as the height of military tactical training, basically. So it shouldn't surprise people that Russia was experimenting with Hearts of Iron 4 players becoming tactical or strategic theorists in its ranks. Within... Okay, so I'm not sure exactly where I'm going with this, but I had a thought in my mind, kind of a seed to germinate, and I think I finally found the point I was trying to make, which is that childish things can lead to adult successes. But you have to negotiate and cultivate those things into a more in-depth passion, which requires a little bit of dedication, discipline, a little bit of running up against rough edges, and pushing the limits of your mind, and so on and so on. Don't just stay in the comfy zone that is always the same, and so on. Push into the unknown a little bit, routinely, but not necessarily at all times, like people sometimes say. But routinely do it. This means politics. This means spirituality. Means experiences. And I think this is more of a thing when you're younger. And I think the midlife crisis generally applies to people that have not done that. Now, you might get a midlife crisis even if you have done that. But I think the people that live safe lives are the ones that primarily have the midlife crisis. Because they get to a certain age and they go, everyone around me has done these amazing things and I've done nothing. What's going on with me? What's out there that I'm not seeing? Right? And then they focus on the external, not the internal. And that's when they buy the Bugatti, like Andrew Tate, who's basically one long giant midlife crisis personified. A grifter in some sense. I mean, he's got the real deal for muscles and some fighting capability and so on, but I wouldn't like his chances against Joe Rogan, who doesn't have the ego. And I'll end on one final note. What I found is that in order to get and survive and come back from eventually, even if you're in the depths of despair for a long time, the ultimate thing that keeps you coming back from it and so on is going to be, in order to get the HFY experience, and if you don't physically die, to mentally recover from any traumas that might occur because of it, which I can attest to, by the way. To get that Battle Scars Fighting Sin and purpose for this channel video, and having lived through it, physically surviving, and actually feel confident enough now to actually talk about it and say, like, hey, that was kind of interesting, and so on, is in order to get the HFY vibe, what you need is to have a hardcore Christian memento mori attitude. And then when you realize everyone dies, but the phrase is everyone dies, few live, only a few live, you begin to understand that the risk of death to become great can be worth it to people. You might not choose it yourself, you might be like Bilbo Baggins, but in the end, if you survive, you will become great. And it's the great people that shape the history. And look at Charlie Kirk. He's just radically won the culture war for the conservatives. He had to die to do it, but he knew that was a possibility, and he kept doing what he was doing anyways, knowing that might happen. He wasn't looking to be a martyr particularly. Yeah, I mean, he joked about it with Antifa attacking him in a restaurant once. But, this point is, that was more of a joke. He knew the potential. He just didn't think it would happen. And I'm going to say something that maybe only having nearly died like 46 times gives me the right to say. It's entirely possible that Charlie Kirk, in his final moments, thought this wasn't worth it. But he obviously thought it up until that point. And I believe he's in heaven, looking down and saying, oh wow, was it worth it? Because he just saved the world for his daughter, even if it's without him. That's a high cost. But at least his daughter doesn't have to live in a world where the left rules everything with an iron fist. Which would be hellish. Yeah. And what father wouldn't sacrifice their life to give a future to their children? Right? I mean, that's what fathers are kind of for in a way. Really, when you think about it. That's why we're tougher, because we're more expendable. And we've adapted to that expendability. And it's not even like if you think about it, right? The woman is pregnant 9 months. If she dies any time in that 9 months, the child dies. If the man dies after making her pregnant, the child lives. So does the woman. Right? Obviously, men are more expendable. And then we adapted because we're already expendable to survive better being expendable. And that's why the humanity fuck yeah stories, the HFY stories, the hi-fi stories, typically have male protagonists. If you noticed. It's instinctually recognized that the masculine mode of being is a terrifying apex predator experience for almost every animal on Earth. I mean, I've seen men stare down elephants. I've chased bears myself. I mean, there were black bears, and black bears are naturally a little cowardly. But if it wanted to, it could crush me. If it could hit me right. And I was prepared to fight against it. And I chased it. And I knew it could possibly do that if it hit me right. And I was basically going, okay, here's how I'm going to jump on his back and gouge its eyes out and strangle it to death and stuff like that. Yeah, I was in the mode. I was in battle mode. Yeah. I mean, there's been a time when that happened in broad daylight. There was a time at night when a bear came out of the bushes about 2 meters away from me and then looked at me and then went back into the bushes. There's a time when a bear walked into the yard with my younger family members, like children, like 3 of them playing a little bit behind me, kind of over that way, while the bear was over this way, and I basically shooed them into the house. And then, like, if the bear came closer, I was ready to run this way, or this way, sorry. Let's see, this way, along the wall, because that's where I was basically at the corner of the house, to get the axe on the wood pile so I can hatchet the bear to death. Like it's like, I mean, Christ. So yeah, humanity, fuck yeah, in so many cases. Then there's that one guy who, like the White Death, who took a explosive bullet to the mouth, and was generally a happy guy after he retired from the war. Relatively successful. Or the Finnish soldier again, who took so much methamphetamine or amphetamine that he was high for a month, going around in circles and eating pine cones and squirrels, raw squirrels. Before he got back to friendly lions, because he finally calmed down enough to figure out where he was going in the middle of winter. Yeah, these stories do happen. It's kind of funny, but it's freakish, right? Like it's freakish, but at the same time, our normal is kind of freakish to other animals. I mean, a cat does not hunt bigger animals. A human does. Humans attack for food bigger animals. There's very few animals that do that, if any, other than humans. Maybe sharks, maybe. Parasites, I guess. But, like I said, though, the right attitude is generally something equivalent or akin near to hardcore Christian memento mori. That's where you get the hi-fi story experience and survive it mentally, so you get over the trauma of what it takes to get a hi-fi or HFY story. From experience doing this. And again, you can go to my video, Battle Scars, Fighting Sin, and my purpose for this channel, and so on, and I show you all my scars, so you can see for yourself. I've got the marks to prove that I've been through this living hell myself. So I'm speaking from experience here. I've got the receipts on my body, and you can see them for yourself in that video. I know I'm fat, but I don't care anymore. I'm tough enough where I'm good for a woman, even if I'm fat. Because I know I'm a goddamn tank.